Well, the experts are back. That's right. Joel Connelly of SeattlePI.com and Mike Seely of the Seattle Weekly are here with us. It's Sound Month in Review time on Public Exposure. I'm Stan Eminer. There's no better way to start off the show than with alcohol. Costco and liquor, good or bad for Washington? Joel?
I can close my eyes and I can see the piles of cheap vodka at Costco if we eliminate the state liquor system. And I'm wondering whether that's really going to be that good for the state or whether it's going to be good for small grocery stores. I tend to think what is to be gained by replacing one big player, supposedly playing in the public interest, with another big player?
Well, to foes of Initiative 1100, the privatization measure to which Costco has already given $735,000, the Issaquah-based corporation is the latter. Backers of the competing privatization bill, supported by more than $1.4 million from two big beverage distributors, this is Initiative 1105, have called the Costco measure irresponsible and say it will loosen restrictions to the point where there will be more liquor stores than Starbucks stores. Is that a bad thing?
I'm voting for both, just because I want to see what happens, frankly. But no, I generally consider privatization of liquor to be a very, very, very good thing, having lived in states where that's the status quo. I'd much rather buy my big, cheap half-gallons of whiskey at Costco instead of the state liquor store. I'd also like to buy it at the corner store. I think, both things will happen, even if Costco has a competitive advantage. But what I think is especially humorous is hearing my friend Sandeep Kaushik, who likes to drink, as do I, come out and kind of sound like a NIMBY on this issue. He's paid to be doing it, but I get a kick out of it.
I guess I just don't get it. Why is the state in the liquor business in the beginning?
I think it's supposed to be one of those things where you control it, you limit it, and you tax it. And the Liquor Control Board has been forever very, very fussy about its rules and its regulations, and has been frankly an irritant. Getting them to stock good stuff has been very difficult. They've loosened up a good deal. You can, for instance, readily get Maker's Mark, the best of bourbons, even at the Darrington liquor store. But this was a general idea of, remember, we once had a tolerance policy here in the Seattle area, where essentially vice was controlled and limited, and its proceeds distributed high in the bureaucracies of both the King County Sheriff and the Seattle Police Department. So again, there's been that philosophy that it's something to be, perhaps furrow your brow on. It has to be legal, but it has to be limited.
Well, speaking of good stuff, and Mike, I got to ask you this one first. If we legalize marijuana, as one of the initiatives is trying to do here in Washington State, will the Seattle Weekly volunteer for the Quality Control Board?
Absolutely. I'm sure our readership would as well. But, marijuana these days, I feel like its time has come. I'm not sure if this particular initiative will get on the ballot. I tend to hope it does. They've had some struggles. It's maybe been too much of an all-volunteer effort, as admirable as that might be. And they've run into some, imbroglios with would-be supporters. But I don't think people care about pot being legal or not anymore.
Yeah, well, seriously, this one, it doesn't look like it's going to make it on the ballot. That's for sure. What was the problem? Was it basically what Mike said, that it was just all volunteer?
The problem was that it is a complete blanket legalization, as opposed to from which all controls would be removed. They were not able to get thousands of dollars of labor union money in order to hire signature mercenaries to get on the ballot. And they were not able to, and that was because they were not able to get the support from the American Civil Liberties Union. I think there were reservations about the responsibility of the project. And I'm also hearing a little bit nowadays about if you have a proliferation of grow operations, you're going to have some polluted streams and some chemicals being used and things like this, particularly if they're outdoors. So I think stepping back and figuring out exactly how we want this to be made available is not a bad idea, as opposed to simply let the fun times begin initiative.
So we haven't heard the last about pot, though.
We certainly haven't.
Okay.
They're promising to be back again.
Well, let's talk about some of the other 2010 initiatives, and there's just a boatload of them. Tim Eyman's back with some tax increase, decrease. Not really sure what it is, but that's okay. It doesn't matter, does it?
This is one requiring 2/3 votes in order to increase taxes in the legislature. Iman is, I think, now living up to his nickname of Slick, because he's gotten big contributions from Tesoro and ConocoPhillips, the oil companies, to pay the signature mercenaries to put this on the ballot, because they were all worked up about the storm, the oil barrel tax that was proposed in the legislature to clean up storm drains and that carry pollution into Puget Sound. And you have Iman's initiative to some extent now being hijacked by Iman, because there's a new committee to promote this measure, which California style will basically make it impossible to raise taxes and cause the same types of impasses that you have down there, where you have a 2/3 majority required to ratify the state budget. But major business concerns are now chiming in with money, so Iman has attracted. He may be a right-wing populist, but he's attracted some of the interests of the moneyed status quo on this one.
The readers of the Weekly will vote against the Iman initiative just because it's Iman, right?
Yeah.
So then maybe if what Joel is saying happens, then it wouldn't be a bad idea for the initiative that Iman is sort of usurped.
If they want our readers' votes, sure. I mean, I think the thing about a lot of these initiatives, not to get too off topic, is there's so many of them this year. So many of them are quite hard to understand, like the privatization of pension.
Yeah, I couldn't understand that.
I don't really understand it that well either. And then there's just flat-out ridiculous ones, and this won't make it onto the ballot, but we wrote about it anyway. It's to replace George Washington's head on the Washington State seal with a tapeworm coming out of taxpayers' posterior. And that's the ultimate anti-tax initiative, not making it on the ballot, but that's just kind of where this process has gone, and it kind of tends to obscure the fact that there are some worthwhile initiatives on the ballot.
So is the Weekly going to take an editorial position on that particular initiative?
No, I mean, if a high-caliber artist came in and drew the tapeworm, we might be swayed, but I don't think that's going to happen.
But there are some serious initiatives with regard to an income tax here. That is heavily financed, and that income tax is on, I think it's $200,000 or more. And that is getting a lot of money on both sides.
It's going to make the ballot. You already have various moneyed interests. I noted, for instance, that technology millionaire John Stanton has contributed $25,000 to oppose it. I think Bill Gates Sr. has made a 6-figure contribution in order to put it on the ballot. You're going to have the Association of Washington Business pitted on the one side against the Washington Education Association and the SEIU on the other, since, of course, the money that would be raised by this would be earmarked to meet some of the standards of education that we never seem to be able to. So I imagine it'll be a considerable brawl. Oregon fought the kind of parallel battle earlier in the year, and the tax the rich proposals narrowly were adopted.
Why not, if we're really going to take on the theory of an income tax, why not just have an income tax and not just target the rich? But if an income tax in theory is a good thing, why should we just have it for all? Let's take a real quick break first, so think about that one. We'll be right back. We're very fortunate here on Public Exposure once a month to have Joel Connelly, SeattlePI.com, Mike Seely of the Seattle Weekly, right here with us. We call it Sound Month in Review because that's what they do. They review the past month, not only in the Puget Sound, but the Puget Sound's view of the rest of the world. And we're getting that tonight. Go to the website, SeattlePI.com. Go to the Weekly, or better yet, pick it up at the newsstand.